Today is going to be a presentation to talk about some of what you may have been fed through different news media, print media, through different campaigns, Trump. So you may have something that may have been fed to you, but they're not reality. You have to fact check. Are you really worth 50 billion or not? So you have to realize there's a difference between opinion and fact. And this is something that Fox News tries very hard to blur, but we want to try to demystify that and clarify fact from fiction. So we're going to be talking about Islam. And as a Muslim, I want to share this with everybody. And the point of this presentation today is to build bridges, not to build walls. First thing, when I was going to school here, and I was raised here in San Diego, we used to find these little books, and used to say, Allah, the moon god, or you would have this, Allah, the Muslim god, or something like this. And this fiction has been portrayed by many people who are trying to dilute the true message of Islam. And this is something so funny that I can't believe that people actually still say these things when there is no root for this at all in Islam. You will find that this is so fictional that you might as well start it with once upon a time in a land far, far away. Because there's no reality to this at all. What is the Muslim belief about God? For this, we want to come to the word Allah. You will see it in Arabic and the transliteration in English. What does the word Allah mean? In simple terms, when we refer to our Creator, God, we refer to Him as Al-Ilah, the sole deity worthy of worship, the God. Yani, there is only one that has this title that is deserving to, the one who is our Creator, the one who is our Master, the one who feeds us, the one who created the universe, the one who gave us purpose in life. That Creator, we refer to Him as Allah. But it's not just the word Allah. We know Allah or God through many names, many attributes. The most merciful, the most forgiving, the most loving, the one who guides, the one who transitions things, the one who develops things, the one who made this universe, the one who sustains the universe, not just humans and animals, but all of the creatures. So we know Allah through many names. So we don't want to give this impression that some people do as if we have our proprietary God. No. That same God that sent Jesus, that sent Moses, that sent Abraham, the one who created everything above us and below us, that's the one God we believe in. The word Allah is unique, although you will find it in other faiths as well. If you look at the Abrahamic faiths in the Aramaic language, the language spoken by Jesus, many of you may be Christians, or at least you were raised in Christian households. But you should realize, what did Jesus himself do? You find these little figures, like what would Jesus do? But do you really know what Jesus would do? I mean, do you really know what He did when He woke up, when He went to sleep? How He prayed, what language He spoke? Do you pray in the same language as Jesus does? You should think about these things. Many of you may be following the Jewish traditions, and you should know, are you praying in the same Hebrew that Moses did? Because if you do, and if you go back to the Abrahamic languages, whether it's Aramaic, whether it's Hebrew, you will find the word for God, whether it's Elohim or Ilah, in different ways, but all coming back to the same root that we find the word Allah in as well. So in reality, when you say Allah, you are closer to what Jesus said than saying God. And I'll tell you why. Not only is it pronounced that way, but in the understanding. And if you get an Arabic Bible, you get a New Testament, Old Testament, you can look up these references. I can give you these PowerPoint slides, a copy, and you will find the word Allah continuously in the Bible as well. Why don't we like the word God? Well, think about it this way. If you have a God, could you have a goddess? That's a question. Because at UCSD, you should be getting better answers. Come on, man. State was doing better than you guys. So, can you have a goddess?
I might be mistaken, but isn't it in Arabic Rabb?
I'm sorry?
Christians, don't they say Rabb?
Sure, but Rabb has a different meaning. As Muslims, we say Rabb as well. Rabb al-Alameen. Rabb means the master, right? You could, in Arabic, whether you're speaking in Fusha or you're speaking in a dialect, you could say Rabb al-Bayt, the owner of the house. Rabb al-Mahal, the owner of the store. But Allah is a different word. The word Allah does not just denote the owner, but the one, only God that there could be. Al, yani for marifa, ilah, God. So Rabb can be used, as I said, we know Allah through many names. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Malik, Al-Quddus, Rabbul Alameen, Dhul Jalali wal Ikram. But the word Allah is unique. Rabb can be used for other than Allah, but Allah cannot be used for other than Allah. So, let me ask you a question again. If you say God, could you have a goddess? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Ask me. The one who asked the question. Or you're just going to ask the question and go to sleep?
No.
Alright. So, God would denote gender because you're speaking about a male. Because if it was a female, it would be a goddess. You could have godlings. You could use the word God for other than God. You could say he's the God of basketball, right? You could say he's the God of rock and roll. But the word Allah is unique. Even though the Arabic language is very heavy with gender, Khalid, Khalida, you always have male and female, right? But the word Allah has no gender to it. It cannot be referred to even by an Arab Christian or Arab Jew or Arab atheist to other than Allah. Grammatically it's incorrect. So this is why the word Allah is very unique. Also, what does Allah, the word, show? That it cannot be for a man. It cannot be for a creature. You cannot call a man Allah. In Arabic grammar, it doesn't make sense. You're saying the only deity worthy of worship, the one that's not created, the one that came by itself, the one who creates everything. So it's a unique word. And that's why we prefer it over the word God, because God can be used for many different things. But it does not give you the complete meaning the word Allah gives. If we look at some of the other fiction that has been put forth, and you will find this fiction in some of your textbooks, that Islam is a new faith that began in the 7th century in Arabia. And when you take Islam 101 here, you might get taught this. But this is fiction. This is as fiction as, I don't know, Star Wars. So, what is the truth? The truth is that Islam comes from the root word of aslama. Aslama, to surrender yourself. And what does the word aslama? Arabic is a unique language where everything goes to a triliteral root word, 3-letter root word. Basically, what does aslama come from? Salama. Salama is the root word for peace. Salam. When we greet each other, we say salam alaikum. Peace be upon you. What is the root word for salam? Salama. So, Islam, the word comes with the meaning of surrendering yourself to the will of your Creator, and from that gaining the inner and outer peace. What is inner peace? It's a spiritual peace that a person has within themselves when they pray, when they remember God. And then there is an outer peace in society that comes from implementing those rulings that Allah has sent to govern society. So for this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this religion of Islam. But this was not something that was named after a man. For example, if you look at the word Christianity, what is it named after? Christ. So if you look at Jesus Christ and those followers, they will be Christians. They will be following the religion of Christianity. Judaism. Not you. Hard. So, Judaism, what would it be named after? Am I at the right university? Maybe I took a wrong turn and got into some college or something. You see, I was expecting some. Judaism, what's it named after? Judah, Judaism. Buddhism. I heard the answer. Alright. Buddhism. Confucianism. But we're not Muhammadans. We're Muslims. And that means we're not named after any man. Islam didn't begin with Muhammad, peace be upon him. Islam has been that same faith that Adam professed, that Noah brought, that Abraham, Ishmael, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, peace be upon all of them. The same faith is what's called Islam to us. When those prophets, those close people of God, surrendered themselves and followed the will of their Creator, they were Muslims. That's what a Muslim is. Muslim, now, just to make it clear, since we're in fact and fiction and all that, we're not Islamic, we're Muslim. And the religion is called Islam. Alright? I don't want to hear it. So are you Islamic? Well, it's like going to Mexico and saying, are you Spanish and do you speak Mexican? So, Spanish is a language, Mexican are the people. So like that, Muslim are the people and Islam is a faith. What is Islam? It is that same religion that all the prophets brought, that was to follow the will of our Creator. And the one who submits to that, the one who follows that is a Muslim. So, when we look at the Quran itself, it tells us that we were all Muslims. And we'll discuss that under prophets. Now, another misconception. Now, I don't know, maybe you guys are pretty educated here, so you're not going to follow this, but you do hear this a lot, is that all Muslims are Arabs. Right? And this is something that couldn't be further from the truth, but the media kind of makes it seem that way. If we look at the word Muslim is the one who submits. The Quran clearly states to us that Jesus, peace be upon him, he said, we are the helpers of Allah, we believe in Allah, and we bear witness that we are Muslims. So it connects a Muslim to the earlier prophets as well. And we look at the word Muslim in the Quran, it states that this was something that was chosen and preferred by Abraham himself. And if you look at the Muslim world today, you will find that the majority of the Muslims are not from Arab lands. If you look at the Arab countries, at most you have about 14 to 15% of the Muslim world. Now, I swear we'll give you some prizes for getting these later, right? But for now, who can tell me what is the most populated Muslim country in the world?
Indonesia.
Not you guys. Indonesia, that is correct. So, when you think about this, over 200 million Muslims in Indonesia, but most of you before here, except for those who studied apparently, wouldn't even associate Indonesia with Muslim. If you look at the most populated Arab country from the Muslim countries, it would be Egypt, around 90 million, which is not even half of Indonesia. Even if you look at the top 10 countries of the Muslim world, you will find the top of them are all non-Arab countries. So 85% of the Muslim world is not Arab. And not all Arabs are Muslim. You have many Arabs that are Christian, that are Jewish, that are Chaldeans here, that are atheists. So this is not anything to do with ethnicity. Rather, it has to do with a faith, a belief. Alright, next idea, or let's see if it's fact or fiction, which is that Muslims don't believe in Jesus. Now, if you've been listening to me and haven't been daydreaming, then you already know that we do. But I want to explain this in some depth. Keep going. Right. So, as I said, in the Quran itself, as every Muslim believes, the Prophet Jesus and his mother Mary have been mentioned, and Allah has praised Jesus in the Quran. And we as Muslims believe in Jesus, and in my opinion, closer to what the original followers of Jesus, those apostles, those people that were in the early Christian faith, than what you find today. Because if you look it up historically, if you look at the Jesus that you see in your pictures today, this blonde-haired, long-haired white guy on a cross with nails through his hand, historically that's just not correct. I mean, let's just take it at something very simple. If you put a nail through a hand, it's going to rip out. You can't crucify somebody and putting nails through their hand. It's just scientifically not possible. So if you look at what as Muslims we believe in Jesus as a pious man, as somebody who came and brought the message of God, somebody who was not literally the Son of God, but he was the prophet of God, a messenger of God, and you look at the earliest Christian belief, you will find this is closer. The divinity of Jesus came much later, and then to take Jesus into this fictional figure that they've made today is something that happened when the merging of Greek philosophy and Zeus and those kinds of things and their original scriptures came together and to please the European festivals that were already there. I mean, think of it this way. How many of you have heard of Christmas? This was a trick question just to see if you're awake. Right? You've all heard of Christmas, right? Go get a Bible. If you don't have one, I have one. Well, I'll get it. And show me where in the Bible does it mention the 31st or 25th or any other thing in December, having Christmas or a tree or Santa Claus coming down your chimney. Where's that from? Where does Santa Claus come from? Google it. You guys have internet? Right? Not right now, later. Right? But you can look it up. These are Nordic, European fables that have been blended into the Christian faith. Easter, bunnies, eggs. Where did all this come from? We as Muslims have a closer belief to what Jesus, peace be upon him, was, and in reality, to the original followers of Jesus than what we find in churches today. Another thing we hear very commonly and very often is the oppression of Muslim women by Islam. Right? And now, before I get into this subject, I want to clarify. There is a difference between cultural practices and Islam. Right? For example, if you have a cultural practice in your country where you tattoo your face or whatever, that may be your cultural practice. But that may not be a part of Islam. So we have to differentiate between practices that go on in some countries and what Islam teaches as a religion. Islam as a religion brought rights and freedoms to women, and that's why you see. Now think of it this way. I'll give you a very good example. We're here in what country? America. Are you sure? We're not in Arabia or anything? Alright, you're awake, right? And no sleeping in my job. Alright, so we're in America. And this is a free country until the next election. So far, we're a free country, and we have a choice. If anybody wants to be Muslim here, they have a choice. If somebody doesn't want to be Muslim, they have a choice, right or wrong? Right? Or not? You wouldn't? All right, okay. So, now here, if Islam was something that was forced on women, or the religious practices of Islam, you have Muslim sisters sitting here. Look, if any of you don't want to practice Islam, I'll take care of you, just go, run, now. Nobody's running. People choose Islam. And more women are becoming Muslim than even men. So it shows that this is something that has been developed in Hollywood more than in reality. In fact, when you look at the issue of hijab, we talk about the hijab as you see some of the sisters wearing here today. This is the thing that most media outlets want to make this fictional idea that women are forced to wear hijab. But you can ask these sisters here, after the talk, ask one of them, who forced you? Nobody did. You had a choice, and you chose that. And not only is hijab something in Islam, but you find it in all of the earlier faiths. This is a fact. You don't believe me? There's a reference right there. Go look it up in the Bible. This is a verse from the Bible itself. Now, before I mention the verse and before we discuss, there is a difference in attitude towards hijab in Islam and in the other faiths due to some corruption that has happened to the earlier books. So we will discuss that. But the fact of the matter is that the concept of this modest clothing called hijab has been there throughout all the faiths, and not just Abrahamic faiths, as we will discuss. In the Bible, we find, and references are there, you can look it up in the Bible you have at home, but a woman dishonors her head if she prays or prophesies without a covering on her head. For this is the same as shaving her head. Wow, man, get a big... Anyway, yes, if she refuses to wear a head covering, she should cut off all her hair. But since it is shameful for a woman to have her hair cut or her head shaved, she should wear a covering. Bible, New Testament, look it up. Verses there, right? Now, many Christian women don't follow this today, and that's their choice. But you can't deny that that's there in the Bible. Now, if somebody says, oh, this was for another time, then I have to ask, well, is the Bible not applicable anymore? Or do verses have like a time period? Do they expire? Is there a few years, 100 years? How do you justify that? We say the Quran to us is applicable equally today as it was in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, until the Day of Judgment. The Quran is applicable. Every verse of it, every part of it. So, we say, if we want to talk about facts, then let's talk about facts. Let's talk about Judaism. In the Jewish tradition, you have, and you can see a picture that is a current picture. And you can Google this. Go to the internet. Don't trust me. Sorry, Google is apparently more trustworthy. So you put in Jewish hijab or Jewish niqab or Jewish veil, and you will find that there are currently many segments of the Jewish faith who fully cover till today. And you will find even many of the Hasidic Jews in New York and stuff, they have the head coverings. So you will find this was a part of the Jewish religion itself. here's a reference. There's a book by Rabbi Meir Schindler, which is called The Obligation of Jewish Women to Cover. And he says, a woman must be dressed within the laws of modesty, even when she is home alone, or privately with her husband, or while asleep. Now, this is different from Islam. As I said, there are some differences, but in essence, covering has been a practice within the Jewish faith, and from the earliest times till today. Now, we're going to play a little game. Don't click. I need some prizes.
It's right there. I will Ibrahim.
No. Because you're my son.
I want a prize at least.
You guys didn't know we're at prizes, huh? Alright. We're going to play a game. You guys thought this was going to be boring, but this is going to make this fun. Alright? We're going to play a game called Guess My Religion. And if you guess it correctly, you will get prizes. Alright? I may hit you with a prize, but it's not an act of terrorism, trust me. Alright. Now, let's start with the right. The extreme, or you're right, yeah. You're right. What, that draped, oppressed woman that you see, what religion, raise your hands, don't just yell out the answer. You're at UCSD, I'm sure you can do that. Alright, what religion do you think she follows? Go ahead.
Christianity.
She is, Mother Teresa. Good job. Click. Only click once, you're going to ruin it. She's Catholic. I'll give it to you. Number 2. Same person can't answer. Number 2, what religion?
Jewish.
That's Laura Bush. Come on.
Christian.
It hasn't been that long. There you go.
Ow.
I told you it's not an act of terrorism. You did a good job. Laura Bush. Maybe everybody forgot Bush by now. I guess Obama did a good job there.
I really wanted to forget her,
Yeah. Trust me, I wish I could. So, the last one. Yes.
Islam?
Muslim, you're right. Now, what do you see in common? They all have the hijab. They all have the modest dressing, even though they're from different faiths. Keep going. Don't click. Just hold it. All right. The one on the right, extreme right. You are not applicable. Yes.
Judaism?
Yes. I don't know how you got that, but that was amazing. I told you, man. I don't play baseball. She is Jewish. All right. Click one more time. And I've given the reference in case somebody wants to fact check this, or somebody watching the video wants to fact check. You can go look it up. All right. Number 2 in the middle. This is UCSD, right? You guys just have a good rep for no reason. Might as well get a football team. All right. Anybody other than my kids? Nobody? Really? Seriously? I don't even take points away for being wrong. You'll just have to watch my car. No. Oh. Budget cuts, bro. Anybody? Nobody's gonna even guess? Alright, I'll let you guess. Go ahead.
Christianity?
Nah.
What?
This is why I didn't want you to answer. You were going to disappoint your father. Alright, anybody else? Those. Guess. I just start calling on you guys.
Muslim.
No! Disappointing. Alright. Anybody else? Alright, just click it, man. Nobody gets it. It's not going to be that easy. She's Jewish as well. Click one more time. Reference. Last one.
Hard.
This is so easy. Come on, man. State did better than this. Mesa College did better than this. Come on. I know, yeah. That was pretty low. Sorry. Alright, just click it. Go ahead. She's Muslim. Haha. Threw you off. So, what do you find in common here? Again, the covering. Keep going. Just because you guys did so horribly, I'm going to give you guys one more chance. Alright. From the right. Anybody? Other than my kids.
From the students.
I don't take points away for being wrong. Go ahead.
Amish?
Yeah.
Amish, you are correct. Ooh, Amish, almost got your head. Yes. She's Amish. In the middle. Yes.
She's Sikh?
Yes, good job. Ooh, look at that. I should play football. Anyway, she's Sikh. Covering. Last one. This is really easy. Go ahead. Yes! Woohoo! You are. Oh, no wonder you don't have a multiplication. She's Hindu. Now, what do you find in common? You find covering. And the covering is not something that's only in the Abrahamic faith. Like I said, if you look at every faith, in its essence, you will find some form of the covering. But there is a difference in attitude. And I will talk about the difference here. If we look at the biblical verses, you will find, for this reason, talking about the covering. And because the angels are watching a woman, she should wear a covering on her head to show she is under the authority, which is the authority of her husband. Right? So this is a little bit different. In Islam, the covering has nothing to do with your husband, or your father, or your brother, or your son. It has to do with you being known as an honorable woman, protecting your beauty. And that's what you find in the Quran. That is better for them to be covered, so they should be known as honorable women and not to be annoyed. So the difference in attitude is there. For example, in Judaism, a woman has to cover according to the laws of Tanut, even when she's at home, even when she's with her husband, even when she's asleep, as Rabbi Schindler wrote in his book. But in Islam, a woman only covers when she's around those men who could be a harm for her. Those that are not her father, not her brother, not her husband, not her children. So when she's at home with those men that are her close relatives, there is no cover. There is the relaxed attitude that a person has. But when there is a fear that somebody's going to judge you more for your looks than your intellect, somebody's going to look at you in a harmful manner, that is where you cover. And that is to show that you are an honorable, chaste woman. And that has to do with you and God. It doesn't have to do with the husband. You don't start covering after you get married or because your father told you to. You do it because that's a part of your religion and your connection with God. Nobody can force it on you. And that's the Islamic attitude. Now, we see the next misconception, which is the Quran tells you to kill people. And a common quoted verse that you find O'Reilly and, I don't know, Limbaugh and all those guys quote, is when they give you a quote from the Quran. And I've given the verse numbers if you guys want to write them down and look them up yourself. Which is, and prepare against them whatever you are able of wars and of siege of war, by which you may terrify the enemies of Allah and your enemy. This is Quran chapter 8, verse number 60. And you find this a lot on Fox and on different news channels. You see them quoting this. What they don't tell you is the next verse. You will find in the next verse, in verse number 61. So 60 is what they quote, 61 is what they hide from you. And if they incline towards peace, then incline towards it and rely upon Allah. So what does the Quran tell you? When you are in a state of war, somebody attacks you, yes, you need to defend yourself. But if somebody's at peace with you, then you need to be at peace with them. Who could disagree with that? I mean, who here would think that if you're sitting there at home, relaxing on a Saturday night, and somebody breaks through your window and starts to punch you and is putting a knife to your throat, you're not going to defend yourself? Of course you are. Everybody is. You're going to defend yourself. You're going to defend your family. You're going to defend your kids. You're going to defend your spouse. But if somebody's not bothering you, then you should not bother them. And Islam teaches us that. You know, Islam is a very practical religion. It's a truthful religion. We don't believe in hypocrisy. You know, we hear people say, turn the other cheek. Well, we didn't turn the other cheek in Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere else or World War II. Let's be honest. You know, if somebody attacks you, defend yourself. But if somebody's not messing with you, don't mess with them. Incline towards peace because that's what Allah wants. People say, we want to turn the other cheek. But I dare you, go to a church, take the preacher and slap him. Give him a good pow. You know? Let's see if he turns the other cheek or presses charges on you. So, Islam is about honesty. We are going to be honest. If somebody attacks you, you need to defend yourself, defend yourself. But don't go and kill people, innocent people, and attack lands and cause problems. When there is peace, always take peace. Always avoid conflict. But sometimes you defend yourself when you need to. All of these verses have to be taken in context. Because if we were to take verses out of context, you could misquote anybody. But what does Islam teach you in its essence? And these are verses you can look up yourself. This is Quran, chapter number 5, verse number 32. in Quran, chapter number 10, verse number 25. What does Allah tell us? Anyone who has killed a person unjustly, it would be as if they have killed all of mankind. And if anybody has saved a life, it would be as if they have saved all of mankind. This is the essence, the message of the Quran. The Quran tells us that Allah invites you to Dar as-Salam, to the home or the place of peace, and guides whom He wills to the straight path. As Muslims, those of you that are here Muslims, after the prayer, what do we say? We say, Allahumma anta salam, wa minka salam, tabarak ya dhal jalali wa ikram. Oh Allah, Allahumma anta salam, from you is peace. Allahumma anta salam, minka salam, you are peace, from you is peace. And then we praise Allah. We praise Allah for the peace that we live in. That's what Islam teaches. Now, do certain Muslims misuse verses for political causes? Of course. And could you do that with any book? Of course you could. In fact, if you look at the Bible, many of you may have a Bible at home, go look it up. I've given the verse numbers here. Matthew 10:34, you will find that according to the New Testament, not even the Old Testament, not getting all biblically Old Testament on you, in the New Testament, it says that Jesus says, don't think that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. Another, Luke 19:27. But as for those, supposedly the words of Jesus, I mean, I'm not a biblical scholar, I'm just quoting what's there. Okay? But as for those enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slaughter them before me. These are supposed to be the words of Jesus. Now, me personally, I don't believe Jesus said that. But, again, I'm not a biblical scholar, so it's not my job. If you go to the Bible, and if you have one at home, if you don't have one, Google it, look up these verses. Could you misquote, misuse these to carry out acts of terrorism, acts of mass murder? Of course you could. Has it been done? Of course it has. Haven't you heard of the Spanish Inquisition? Haven't you heard of what happened in the Crusades? What happened, how many people of you here have heard of the KKK? Well, you're better than Trump. All right, great. So, if you've heard of the KKK, what does the KKK burn on your cross? On your lawn, sorry. What do they burn? It's a cross. It's not a crescent. It's not a Star of David. It's not an American flag. They burn crosses. What do they wear on their robes? Crosses. They have Bible studies. They have churches that they go to. No doubt. They use these verses to carry out acts that I would obviously consider terrorism. Hanging people from trees, that's pretty terrorism as you can get, right? So, can any religion be misused? Of course it can. Can any text? In fact, many people don't even need religion. Stalin didn't even need a religion to kill millions of people. But what we want to discuss here is the religion of Islam. If you look at politics, that's a different issue. And you look at the world, you look at ISIS, you look at these things that are going on, these are political situations. Before the invasion of Iraq, there was no such thing as ISIS or Al-Qaeda in Iraq or any of that kind of stuff. Before the sanctions and bombing of Syria. So those things were bred out of a political environment. It didn't come from a Quranic scholar coming out of an Islamic university. So we want to talk about facts. Whoa, I told you, don't click away. So, all Muslims are terrorists, right? So now, let's think about this, right? How many Muslims are here in this room? There are quite a few, right? If we were all terrorists, you guys would all be dead by now. You guys aren't that many, right? How many Muslims in America? 6, 8, 10 million? How many Muslims in the world? 1.6 billion. That's almost 1 out of every 4 people in the world is a Muslim. So if every Muslim was a terrorist, the world would be finished by now. If you just killed a couple of people, the world would be gone, right? So we can see this is just stupidity. This is just something that maybe somebody says on a campaign and then regrets it later. So, then some people say, no, all Muslims aren't terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslim, right? They kind of flip it. They said, okay, if all Muslims aren't terrorists, because there are some good Muslims, right? But all terrorists are Muslims. Again, this is false. This is a graph based on data from the FBI's website. Anybody heard of the FBI? I know I have. Anyway, so the FBI, and I've given the link to their website. You can look up these stats that give the statistics of between 2002 and 2005, and they chose those dates, of terrorist acts committed on U.S. soil. So if you look at it, this is how it breaks down. And again, Don't, this is not me. You can fact check this. You can go to the link, look up to the site yourself. This is how they broke it down. Jewish extremists, 7%. Islamic extremists, 6%. Communists, I didn't even know we had communists still, 5%. Latinos, 42%. Others, 16, I don't know what others is, but extreme left-wing groups, Earth Liberation Front, and all those, 24%. These are terrorist acts committed on U.S. soil between 2002 and 2005 as recorded by the FBI. Now, if you watch Fox, you wouldn't ever get this. And that's scary. Because what does it tell you? That our perception of reality is being changed by opinions. These are facts. These are recorded numbers by FBI. But what you see on the media, you would think this whole thing would be Muslims. But that's not reality. And that's why we want to have this fact versus fiction. If we look at all religiously motivated attacks in Europe, right? I mean, we're talking about Europe because that's a big, we just had the Paris attacks, and you had Berlin, and you had all kinds of violence going on. And if you look at the media, basically it would be as if only the Muslims are doing. This is put together by Europol. I've got the link, and again, I can send these slides out if it's not an eye test. Europol, which is the international police used in Europe, they collected data, not just Muslims, but all acts of terrorism that are based on religious beliefs between 2008 and 2013. If you put them all together, you look at the orange, these are non-religious groups that carry out terrorist attacks. You see that little bit of blue? That's by not just Muslims, all religious groups put together. There are active terrorist organizations in France, in Spain, in the Basque areas, who are bombing police stations, that are killing people, trying to separate from different countries. We don't even hear about it. Why don't we hear about it? Because Fox News decided that they get better ratings if they put a Muslim face to it. And that's why you only hear about a sliver of that, but all of this is hidden. And this is something not recorded by Muslims or by me, this is by Europol. Look up the link yourself. So this is why we want to talk about reality and not perception. This is something that was put together by New York Times. Not a Muslim organization, not ISNA, not CARE, or anybody else. But the New York Times put together that since September 11th, up to 2015, they put together all deaths. Because you may say, okay, maybe Muslims don't do as many terrorist acts, but they kill the most people, right? So they put together a chart looking at total deaths by terrorist acts in the US, including Fort Hood and Boston and all of that put together. And they found that non-jihadist extremists, homegrown terrorists, white supremacists and others, they far outnumber deaths even, the number of deaths by those. You look at all these bombings and abortion clinics and killing of doctors, they don't even get on the news anymore. But it does still go on. There are groups that are killing people, and the fact is that this is something that has nothing to do with Islam. Terrorism has no religion. Even if we look at the bigger picture, and we talk about Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and 9/11, put it all together. But let's look at it from the 20th century. Let's put it all together. Anybody heard of World War I? Just making sure you're awake, because I know you've all heard of it. Or I got to talk to your chancellor about your education here. So, who started World War I? Not you. All right. Again, I'll have to talk to your history professors. It was between Europe, though, right? Did some Muslim come to Europe and start it? No. World War II. Who's heard of World War II? Hitler. Come on, you gotta have heard of Hitler, right? Right? Okay. So, was Hitler a Muslim? No. Stalin a Muslim? No. All of those deaths, if you look at deaths by political violence in the 20th century, this little sliver is how many have been caused by Muslims. You see this big blue? That's by people of European heritage and Christian background. Facts. Go look it up. How many people died in World War II? How many people died in World War I? How many people died in the bombing of Hiroshima and those wars that go on? So, not that there isn't terrorists that are Muslim. Of course there are. There are bad people that are Muslims, no doubt. But don't get it muddied in what you see on TV today, which seems to think this is something exclusive or related to Islam itself. Now, if we talk about the religious beliefs. One of the things that we hear from some of those fictional writers apparently is the Quran was written by a man, or written by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This is absolutely fiction, and I'll tell you why. We'll prove it. Keep going. First thing is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. According to all of the historic writings that are there present, historic writings, I'm not talking about religious scholars, right? They all agree that he couldn't read or write. So, if you talk about the Quran being written by him, well, he couldn't read or write, so that's technically impossible, right? Secondly, if we look at those people that were religious scholars of that time, they were pagans. Most of the Arab society were pagans. They didn't believe in the Abrahamic faiths at all. And those that were Christians and Jews that were living around Arabia, if they could produce something like this, why wouldn't they create it by themselves? Hey, why would you put together this amazing book that can make somebody the leader of a world and then give it to somebody else? You would say, I wrote it. Right? So this tells you that this is impossible. The Quran, for those of you who are Arabic students, is the most authoritative book of Arabic grammar as well. Right? Meaning, if you study Arabic here, in this school, you will find references back to the Quran when you talk about grammar. I studied Arabic, and the Arabic language, when we find one poet from Asad Jahiliyyah said this, and the other said that, and this writing says this, if you want to go back to say, okay, what is the final ruling, you go to the Quran. So how can a man who's illiterate, who can't even read or write, produce such a work that it becomes the single most authoritative book in the Arabic language? There are many known scientific facts that were mentioned in the Quran, and I don't have time to present all of them here. But you can look up the works of Dr. Zakir Naik or other people who discuss this. There is one book that I'm going to mention and a quote. There is Dr. Yunus Bukai. He was a French scientist. And you can Google him, you can look it up. If you want the book, you can get on the internet, or we can get you some. He wrote a book, which is the Bible, the Quran, and Science. And if you read the introduction, he discusses how he was an atheist. He was an atheist, professor, scientist, who started his work with the Bible first. And he took the Bible, and he took verses from the Bible, and he tried to compare them to modern science. And he presented his findings that what we find currently in the Bible that we have today, the facts that are mentioned in it, cannot comply with modern science. They don't mix. And when he presented this, people were standing ovations. People were very happy. So he thought, since I've already got that out of the way, might as well do the Quran. So he went and he started studying the Quran. And then, after studying the Quran, and after studying the life of the Prophet, he himself wrote, and this is his quote, not mine, that the above observations, discussing the scientific miracle of the Quran, makes the hypothesis advanced by those who see Muhammad as the author of the Quran untenable. It's unachievable, impossible. It cannot be. Muhammad, peace be upon him, cannot be the author of the Quran, according to Dr. Mirz Bukai. And then he says, how could a man, from being illiterate, become the most important author in terms of literary merit in the whole of Arabic literature? How could he then produce truths of a scientific nature that no other human being could possibly have developed at that time? And all this without once making the slightest error in his pronouncement on these subjects. This led him to become a Muslim himself. And I encourage you to read the Quran yourself. If you want a Quran, we can get you one. If you want this book, the Bible, the Quran, and Science, we can get it for you. If not, you can Google it. And look it up yourself. And learn about yourself. Don't take your religion from Fox or Trump or anybody else. Take it from the true sources. Learn it yourself. Get a Quran yourself. And then you will see. So, in essence, I want to talk about some of the practices of Islam in end. What does Islam teach us? What does it ordain upon Muslims? And this is the most simplest of the basics of Islam, I would say. We have 5 pillars. The first, the Shahada. To profess faith that there is only one God, and Muhammad is his prophet. We as Muslims are strictly monotheistic. We don't have 3 is 1, and 1 is 6, and 12 is 4, none of that kind of stuff. There is only one creator who created everything, who sustains everything, who sent every messenger, who is the one who created this universe. Not just the earth, not just whatever aliens and whatever space things may be out there, the creator of everything, that one creator we believe in. He's not a man, he's not a goat, he's not a cow, he's not anything else. He is the creator of all of that. So we don't give it image. We don't give human qualities to him. Secondly, as-salah. We as Muslims believe in praying 5 times a day. What is that? It is a reminder, a tadhkirah, a check, to remind ourselves 5 times a day of our Creator, of our duty to our Creator, of being good, of being honest, of following the right path. That is a beautiful worship, because throughout your day, you start getting tempted. Should I cheat on this test? Should I try to get these notes? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I lie? And then you go and stand in your prayer, and you realize that you weren't sent here to just make whatever you need to by any means possible. You were sent here with a mission to be a good person, to be honest, to be beautiful. And that your prayer reminds us every day, 5 times a day. Then we have zakah. What is zakah? It is giving to the poor. As a Muslim, when you have wealth, not income, we're not giving 10% to the church or something like that. Muslims believe that when you have saved income, wealth, and you have it for over a year, and it's more than a certain amount, then 2.5%, only 2.5% of that, you should take and give to the needy. Not to the imam of a mosque or to build mosques, but to those that are truly in need, those that are hungry, those that are struggling. Because if you have wealth that's sitting in the bank, you're not even using it, and a year has passed on it, you can take 2.5% of that and give it to the poor, at minimum, so that wealth circulates, that the needy are helped. And this is an obligation upon every Muslim. Then we have fasting in Ramadan. And the month of Ramadan is coming, and I am inviting all of you to join us in the month of Ramadan to fast. And if you can't fast, you can come and eat with us anyway. And we have every day, food is going to be served throughout the mosques in San Diego. I usually attend the Masjid al-Ribat off of 70th, so I want to invite you. Every night we have food. You can come any night you want. There's no rooms to build bombs or any kind of torture chambers, I swear. If you don't believe me, come check it out yourself. You can go up and down and everywhere you like. But we want to invite you. Come eat with us. Come break some bread. It's free. Not going to charge you. And you can come and see what Ramadan's about. Ramadan is about fasting. Ramadan's about knowing the need of others. It's about family. We all, as Muslims, stay away from food and drink and things from sunrise to sunset. And in that time, when you have food but you can't eat it, you realize the hunger and the pains and the hardships those other people in other countries who don't have food go through. And you realize that more important than buying a PS6 or 7 or whatever, or Xbox 8 or 10 or your new Apple 7, more important than that is take some of that money and feed some poor people with it. Because you realize during this month what it feels like to be hungry. What it feels like not to have. And this is very important because it connects humanity. Muslims, non-Muslims, white, black, Chinese, whatever, everybody's hungry. Everybody wants to eat. Everybody wants to live. And when you feel that hunger, this is when you realize that we're all one big human family. Last but not least is Al-Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. Once in a lifetime, those Muslims that are able-bodied and have the means to, we go and make a pilgrimage to Mecca. And why Mecca? This is the center that united the prophets. This is where Abraham stood. This is where Ishmael stood. This is where the different prophets from the time of Adam went. And when we go there, we see this common bond. We go stand and pray where Abraham stood. We go and walk where Hajar walked. We go and see where Ishmael was. And it makes us realize that this is no new faith. We're all connected to the earlier prophets. And when we go, as men, we go in 2 pieces of white cloth. That's it. It's called the ihram. Izar and rida. That's it. No Versace suits, no fancy thobes, no bling blings, and no, Raider jersey and Chargers shirts and all of that. It's all gone. So what happens is, we all come back to being that basic human. We don't know where somebody's from. You could be Pakistani or Mexican, can't tell you apart. You could be from Finland or Canada. All those outer garments to show your nationality are gone. And you realize that we're all human beings. And that's why people like Malcolm X, when they went on this pilgrimage, it changed their life. They realized that white, black, we're all humans. Those racist attitudes go away when you perform this pilgrimage. And these are the 5 basic pillars of Islam.